Hello, this is a really incredible story. It happened in Talafira, I think I'm saying that, in Portugal, between Portugal and Spanish border on the Portuguese side. And in 1976, in November, I think, about that. And it was on a Portuguese military complex on the air base. It looks after fuel, it's a big fuel depot basically. And it was seen by a number of people clearly, really clearly, and it involved UFOs, um, alien creatures, the entire lot, to be honest. Things that, and it's a storage you just would not make up, not with three grown chaps, um, Air Force base chaps on guard. So, no. So, anyway, I hope you like it. Here goes. It was reported by these three gentlemen, I say about 76, and it's documented. It's not very documented very well, though. You have to have a look for it. Talafira case, I think, probably come under, but there's bits out there. Unless I hadn't done a fair good search and find much on it, but I just got this in my own document research, which I've compiled over ooh, many years. But anyway, here goes. There's three guardsmen, and they're on around 60 meters apart from each other. I think it's no, sorry, two guardsmen on 60 meters apart. Then that's about right. And it was night time or dark. It was all lit up because but it was dark sky and lit up on the base. And there was no bright lights initially. There's just this incredibly loud, high pitched um, like a whistling sound, so high pitched it worked in their ears. And one guardsman radioed to the other one and says, "Have you heard this? Have you?" Said, "Yeah." Anyway, they communicate to each other, and they get on the radio, and they came out the guard ups what they had, and had to start looking around. Both had rifles and pistols and then the right amount of ammunition, so they wasn't unarmed. And they thought it was maybe somebody messing about or even trying to doctor the fuel. So they had a look round, and time then it went again. It started again, and it made them stopped in the track. They're both together now, these two guardsmen, and this noise lasted quite a few seconds, and it's made hold the head, and then just then there was a flash of light just above them in the sky, like a flare. They describe it as anything they can think it could be, like a green or yellowy flare lit the whole place up. Anyway, then another guardman came with a dog. He came round and he said, "Did you see that?" And they said, "Yeah, we saw it. Did you hear the noise?" I said, "Yeah, we heard that." And then just then, uh, uh, they started to walk around. So I'm going to go up here, and one of the guardsmen um, heard it again. So just as they were together, right, and then what is earth is going on? And then there's some trees just outside the complex where all the fuel are. Is eucalyptus trees, and there are loads of the trees are whistling and going like mad. So the guardsman with the dog lets about parting from these two fellas. They kept together and says, "Let the dog off," and they let the dog off into the eucalyptus trees. And a few minutes later, it didn't bark or nothing. It just came back, quite frightened, and So I thought they heard it again, let it go again, and they did that several times, about 3 or 4 times, 5 times, and each time it came back, it got worse and worse. Anyway, they kept hearing the noise again, and so they let it off again. And the final time it came back, and the guard dog, kept going round all three gentlemen in a circle, and they do that. They were saying the guardian explained that when there's danger, it's trained to go back to its owner, the guardsman, and circle him to tell him there's something of danger out there in the vicinity. Yeah, don't go any further. It's dangerous. Be careful. So it's trained to go round them when it's recognised danger, and the dog kept doing that continually. He says he's never actually saw it in apart from training until then him do it. So this is odd. So they're doing this, and then the dog sort of uh, put the dog on the lead, and they said, "Look, I'll go up here. I'm going to search up here." I went that way, and the guardsmen went one way, and one split up. To have a look, see what they can find, and what's going on. Anyway, just then, one of the guardsmen on his own noticed this tall figure. He was about 9 foot. Remember, the guns are loaded now, and this finger's 9 foot, bright, and he describes it being bright and in like fluorescent. He says tell it's a male person embodiment, a human-looking embodiment, but it was 9 foot and didn't look human. It was all bright, as if full of light, and his chest and belly as if it was full of like little lights. You could see through them. It made up the lights, and his arms were crossed together, and he couldn't see the hands at all. Just it always seemed like a glow at the end of his arms, and his feet and most of his legs. Didn't see them. It was as if he were touching the ground, but he didn't see clearly his feet or legs. They were just there. They were just so bright you couldn't see them. And when he moved, it's as if he couldn't see the feet, and it was 9 feet tall. Never said anything at all. Anyway, just then, as he telling it to Alt and keeps, he before he brought the gun up, he was thinking about bringing his gun up, but he collapsed to the ground. He got so tired like a fatigue, he just fell over and dropped to the ground. Anyway, the other two fellas came up behind him, and the dog was on as well. Dog he didn't let the dog off. He brought his rifle, and other one brought his gun off, and they let go 50 rounds of ammunition at it. As they let go around the 50 rounds of ammunition at this 9 foot alien creature, it disappeared. And obviously, the 50 rounds going off, the noise from happening, the lights. There's another guardhouse just around the corner where an officer and two other chaps sleep. So they came out armed up as well. They come running over, and then they had a search round. Then they had a search round in the morning when the officer came. He took 50 men and did a thorough search of everything. Took the witness statements of these guards. Didn't find any of the shells. And this is what the biggest mystery. They fired 50 shells. They know they fired 50 shells because that's what we're missing, because it's all countable. And not one shell or found. And they couldn't stand, even if they didn't hit the target, the barracks behind them, where they were, not a single shell or bullet hit anything. Nothing. As if they all disappeared with the creature. Yeah, it's very odd. Yeah, it's anyway. It didn't stop from that. The fellow what collapsed to the ground. They couldn't tell this story for 3 years, by the way, because they were still in the Air Force, and there was libel. They was not allowed to talk about it at all. There was signed documents saying, no, you can't say this never happened, blah blah blah. So they had to wait until they left the Air Force in Portugal. But anyway, the fellow what fell to the ground, he was in the mess one day, a few days after this happened, and he became his sight became so bad, he collapsed. Anyway, they rushed him to the infirmary and had a look at him, and his eyesight came back a little bit. Anyway, he was all right for a few days. Then he was out with his wife, uh, and then it was all right. Then he was going to drive the car, and as he got in the car, he said, "I can't drive. I can't see." He lost his eye again. So this time, she rushed him to like the A&E, and they checked him, and yeah, he says, yeah, he did all the tests, never explained what was going on. His sight was even worse. It came back after a few days, and it lasted. His blindness lasts longer. Anyway, this particular time was he lost it again. He was on at work on the base, and they rushed him again to the Royal Infirmary with the eye specialist, and he was there for 10 days, and his eyes couldn't see anything. They did all the specialists did all the tests. No, then suddenly it just started working again. Anyway, this time his eyesight stopped okay for quite some time, quite some weeks and weeks, and then it lapsed again, and that's how it's been. As far as the story's been telling you, it keeps doing that. His eyesight seems to be okay for a few days or weeks, then lapse again for quite some days, and he cannot see anything. And up to that point of the seeing the creature and collapsing on the floor, he had no eye difficulty whatsoever, none at all. And the creature what disappeared, I say creature, I don't know what it was. It was 9 foot, and the moment they fired the shot, it's like you often hear with other spaceships disappearing, vanishing. Don't just go. It just boom, 1 minute's there, and then it's gone, disappeared altogether. And so it's a blinking good story. This, so much. So I mean, I just can't believe anybody, 3 guardsmen, would make it up, and it's documented because now we have Freedom of Information Act, and it's mainly all these things you can find out from Air Force and what have you. So it's a lot there, but you have to dig it out. But I hope you like the story. Apparently, it is true. It sounds true, and it sounds very hard to believe. I know, but it's a story again we wouldn't make up. No, definitely not. It's got too much going for it. Very peculiar though. 9 foot by human being. It's what do they want there? That's what I always, when I first saw this story, must have been 30 years ago plus, and I instantly thought, what were they doing there? What was this being want with all this fuel? What was he checking out? Was he wondering how their planes move? What sort of fuel were they using? And why didn't they send something smaller to have a look? What was this big thing? What was it? I don't know. Hopefully we'll find out one day. But again, I don't think this was man-made. I think it was the Royal McCoy. Where from? Oh, don't know. But it'd be nice to know though. Anyway, I hope you like the story. And if anybody knows more about this, please let me know. I'm sure there's a lot more people know more about it than I do. But please let me know, because it'd be great to know more about it. And if you've got papers, photos, please share. I'd love to see them. It'd be brilliant. Yeah. Again, it was. I don't wrote it down. Talavera. Yeah, it was Talavera in Portugal. Yeah, I'm right. It's unusual. Anyway, God bless. I hope you like that. It's a brilliant story. Thank you. Bye bye.